Testing testicles. I mean, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm your host, Suze. And with me, as always, are my lovely co-hosts, Tammy and Ash. Ladies, how are you?
Excellent.
You jumped in there. We're so funny. We're kind of the same. So Tammy and we always wait at the same time so that neither of us speaks or we both jump in at the same time.
I wanted to jump in tonight.
She's in a
I'm
jumpy mood
A-okay.
tonight. A-okay. Oh, I'm dropping my mic, guys. I'm dropping my mic.
Mic drop.
Holy shit. Anyways. With us always as well is our favorite fact checker, Dave from Perception Correction. Dave, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm great.
Why are you British
And
today?
British.
I don't know. I just wanted to sound different than you guys and sound different than my normal self.
All right. You can be British today, but that means you have to talk the entire episode British accent.
Absolutely not.
No, what the fuck, man. Well, Dave.
You always sound different than us because guess what? You're a man.
What?
Guess who?
What? No.
Did you just assume his gender?
I sure did.
How dare
Before
you?
I popped on
Bigot.
here, I saw someone's post about somebody else that was talking about how they discovered a new gender and it's season fluid.
What?
Whoa.
What?
Like
That
their
sounds
gender
gross.
changes with the seasons.
Season fluid.
No.
Stop
Yeah.
Is this real?
That sounds
Well,
like what comes after
nothing is
winter
real on their
vagina.
end, but
Tammy,
Are you
nothing-
trolling us or
nothing's real, but like none of their nonsense is real, and it's all so far fetched, anyways. So sure, it's real.
I know, but stop making things like this up. Like this is,
Yeah.
you know what? They need to bring back reasonable bullying because
Yes.
when reasonable bullying was a thing, we didn't have any of this nonsense.
Reasonable bullying.
yeah.
Seasonal fluid
I'm gonna get a
sounds
T-shirt.
like winter vagina. Like what comes after that?
Seasonal fluid, apparently.
I'm making a T-shirt that says "Bring back reasonable bullying,"
I
I
like
thought you
it.
were gonna say seasonal
like it.
fluid.
and I can't take credit for that because Noah totally was the one who was like, "That should be on a T-shirt." One time when we were talking,
Oh God.
I like it a lot. We should make a broadcast T-shirt that says that.
bring back reasonable bullying. I'm telling you, there's a lot of dumb shit I didn't do because my brothers bullied me,
Yep.
and it made me a better person.
made me
True.
a better person. Oh God. Anyways, well, ladies and gentlemen, listening to us right now, we have a very special guest this evening, and you are going to want to turn your videos on for this one because he's got quite the slideshow for us. Please
That's right.
put your hands together for Dave. Dave.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been
Oh,
about
I
a
wish
year.
we had fun sound effects.
Wait, we do.
Oh.
Hold on,
You
hold
didn't
on,
Hear
hold on.
mine? Shoot,
Wait,
I did
ready?
applause.
Ready? Put your hands together for Dave.
No,
Can you guys hear that?
no.
Absolutely.
I did it
No.
too. I did applause too. We have the same mixer board, but
Wait, it didn't come
Put your
through?
hands together for Dave. Silence.
It didn't come through?
Yeah.
Why not?
What a letdown.
But how come I can hear it in my headphones?
I
I'm
can
just
hear
gonna
it
walk
too.
off stage now.
Maybe it's an after effect and we'll hear it later. Like Noah will hear it when he's editing.
and then we're idiots. Like, I don't hear anything.
I actually think you have to
Oh,
connect your Bluetooth, like the mixer Bluetooth, to it to do that type of thing.
At least if we sound like idiots, it'll make people laugh.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Now
Because you know whoever's listening to this right now is laughing.
I feel Noah,
I
if you're
hope so.
listening, please add the applause in.
And fart noises.
Oh God.
That being said,
So Dave,
Boom.
what are we talking about today, Dave?
this is a prequel to, I was on Dan Fournier's podcast not too long ago, and I was going to whip this out there, and it was about half the size that it is now.
Oh, whoa,
And I
whoa,
never
we're not
got
just
to.
whipping things out.
Yes.
Yeah,
settle
everybody
down.
make sure you're watching right now so you could see what I'm talking about.
So you can see what he's whipping out, everybody.
Yeah.
It's not a dick pic. Don't worry.
The roots of ideological subversion.
I feel like
And the early groups.
I'm in class right now.
Correct. If anybody doesn't know what I do, I make videos. There's nothing new under the sun that I'm going to present. I took that saying from Mark Passio. But I like to present it in a way, especially in the videos that I make for people that are like the next generation upcoming that is losing their attention span, that is getting their dopamine hits from doing stuff online. So quick visual changes, quick bullet points, and just on to the next topic, on to the next important point.
So
hilarity.
wait. Quick question. So so these are for the ones that have not received reasonable bullying, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh, okay, got it.
Correct. And for sure, we're going to slow it down because it's a PowerPoint. PowerPoints aren't usually my style, but there will be some video clips in here too.
Awesome sauce. Let's do it.
All right. Let's start. So last time I was here a year ago, we're gonna have to take a little recap quickly into our friends at the Sabbatean Frankists and the Bavarian Illuminati before we move along, just to remember how we got here. But we'll keep it short with those two groups and just include the important stuff. Like, we're not going to talk about the guy's dad that like created the Illuminati. Like, who cares? All right.
Like, who cares?
Right. We can see that. All
Right.
right. Next.
Sabbateans. Look at this dude.
That's Sabbatai Zevi. He was born in 1626 to a wealthy Jewish parents living in Anatolia, which surrounded most of Asia Minor and Turkey. Fast forward to 1666. That's right. Zevi is currently a Kabbalist rabbi, and at this point he decides to declare himself the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. Zevi and his followers came to be called Sabbateans. He was reportedly a charismatic leader, and in a rapid pace he obtained half of the Jewish population as his followers. Half. A contributing factor to his popularity also came from Zevi's use of the Lurianic Kabbalah, named after Rabbi Isaac Luria, a 16th century mystic who proclaimed a new version of the Kabbalah, which used numerology and codes to predict the coming of a Messiah. So, adding on to this little slide here, the actual date where he declared himself the Messiah was June 18th, 1666.
What is a
month?
Kabbalist rabbi?
Someone that uses that book specifically versus other books.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then I was going to go into like the different books in that religion, but it's too long and there's too many slides. So we'll save that for another day or people to look up on their own. But so this guy declared himself the Messiah on June 18th, 1666. What month of the year is June?
6.
6.
What three numbers together do you have to add when to get 18?
6.
Plus 6 plus 6 equals 18. And then on the year of 1666.
What?
Right.
Dun, dun,
So
dun.
I don't know. It could be a thing of where the whole 666 things comes from, because as you'll see, this pretty much ends up being Satanism.
That's just a coincidence. Stop being so far right wing.
That's true. It's true.
Bigot.
So now we're hanging with the Sabbateans. Members were forbidden to marry outside of their cult. There was even a system put in place to keep children unaware of what the cult was really about until they reached a certain age that deemed them trustworthy. Zevi and his followers practiced an inverted form of religious practice. They believed that breaking old Jewish laws and traditions, the new Messiah could more easily lift them up to redemption. Whatever was forbidden by Judaism was encouraged and sometimes even commanded of Sabbateans to do. That included incest and a lot of other things that what people might call nowadays Satanism. So, for an example of that, they feasted during fast days, ate forbidden fruit by Jewish dietary law, and believed in reincarnation. Another aspect of Sabbateanism involved secrecy that we'll talk about in a second. Zevi even encouraged and told his followers to celebrate acts of evil and argued for feelings of guilt to be ignored. Zevi also foretold about a return to the promised land for Jewish people. Sabbateanism was not a form of Judaism, but an inversion of everything that common Judaism stand for. So that whole inversion thing, just keep that in the back of your minds as a concept that's going to carry on through a whole bunch of these groups as we move along.
Can I ask
Speaking
a
of-
question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So this guy was Jewish, though?
Yeah, but like he was like born into like conventional Judaism at the time, and then just
Right.
like turned it upside down and got half the population to follow him. Because I
So-
guess they
Let's say
Go on.
allegedly.
no, this is fact.
Okay.
There is
is
no
this
ifs, ands,
where
or buts about
the-
this.
Because oftentimes you hear when people talk about stuff like this, specifically the Jewish religion, you hear that there's two types of Jews. I think that like the Khazarians.
That's like a specific like breed of.
Yeah. So does this fall into that, or is this separate?
Somewhere in there.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah. Sorry, Ashley, what were you gonna say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that let's just say maybe he wasn't, because he was inverting everything, we can say allegedly, because he wasn't actually following the Jewish tradition.
Right. He was born into
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
then kind of like straight away.
Yeah.
Right. Like the same way
Interesting.
like not all Mexican people are members of the cartel. Not all white people are KKK members. Not all black people are gangbangers. Like not all Jewish people
Not
are
all
gonna be
Italians are in
are
the mafia.
mafias. Right. Like not all people Jewish people are going to be Sabbateans or whatever, right?
Right.
All right. Next slide. So the Sabbatean view of secrecy. Got a quote here by Robert Seffer. You can find him on X, and that's his book on the left there that I read, and that's another source, a guy named Gershom Shalom on the left that I used for research. Anyway, so this theme of a secret, hidden, or occult identity became a part of this evolving religious philosophy. In essence, a true act cannot be committed publicly before the eyes of the world. Like the true faith, the true act was concealed, for only through concealment could it negate the falsehood of what is explicit. Through a revolution of values, what was formerly sacred became profane, and what was formerly profane became sacred. Robert Seffer. So, again, that kind of applies to a lot of things going on in the world today of just like people acting or like even politicians or whatnot trying to get a certain policy passed for one reason, but it's really for this reason. Yeah, we could list off things later. On authority on the Kabbalah, Israeli historian Gershom Shalom described the Sabbatean movement as the largest and most messianic movement in Jewish history. Zevi was expelled from Jerusalem by rabbinical leaders due to his unorthodox views. You don't say. Zevi ended up finding support from the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. So that guy was pretty self-explanatory. On to the next slide. Zevi leaves Jerusalem. Zevi ended up finding support from the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. However, the rate of which Zevi's faction grew quickly made the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire uneasy. At this point, the Sultan presented Zevi with an ultimatum: your head or the turban, which pretty much just translates into like, if you're the next Messiah and we chop your head off, or if we torture you and you die, you can just resurrect yourself, brah. Right? Because that's what Messiahs do.
Exactly. Yep.
So Zevi was like, hell nah. So to the dismay of his followers, Zevi became a Muslim and took the name of Aziz Mehmed Effendi. When Zevi chose to convert to Islam, around 300 families also took part in the conversion. And the ones that didn't take part, like, there was families that, the ones that didn't take part had the mentality of like, oh, he's just doing it to trick them. Or where the 300 that did take part, a lot of the mentalities were like, well, we can just make one super religion. And then Zevi passed away in 1676. So you can already see here how back then there's already a large group of people that has kind of gone covertly into another religion while still believing something else. Right? And as far as adding on to this slide, so these people that converted, these people notably became powerful in the politics and business of Salonika, which is Thessalonica in Greek Macedonia today. Salonika was a major center for Freemasonry and the birthplace of the Young Turk movement, which overthrew the Ottoman Islamic rule in Turkey. They continued to practice the goals and rituals of Sabbateanism behind an Islamic disguise and became known as the Donmech, which means to turn, which is ironic because their turn to Islam was a fake one. Many researchers and authors have concluded that Sabbateanism was a modern version of the religion of Sumer and Babylon, and can be likened in its beliefs and sacrificial practices to today's Satanism.
Interesting.
Very.
Right.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So I find this really cool because when you presented to us last time, I was still, in my infancy of red pilling. So I find it really cool because ever since you gave us like the whole down low of everything, and I watch your videos, and everyone out there, definitely check out Dave's videos that he has to kind of supplement this stuff because they're super interesting. But I find that now I can follow along because since you laid this out the last time, I've been picking up other tidbits along the way. And so when you're talking, I'm like, oh, I know what you're talking about this time. Whereas before, everything seemed so new that like I didn't I couldn't pick up on very much because I didn't know who or what you were talking about. So
Good
I
job,
like it.
Dave.
Awesome.
I'm on board.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, like this story, or like I guess this plan that like I've kind of been researching or whatnot, it can be traced back before the Sabbatean Frankists, but I decided to start here because there's only a certain amount of groups that I have to go through starting at the Sabbatean Frankists before you actually get like video clips of people moving around and like accurate pictures. And like if you were to start even before this time, you would have just portraits of people, and then just like I'm also not very interested in something where I can't see the person talk or can't see an accurate picture of someone. Like I don't know.
Right. Yeah,
It's easier for me to follow in that way.
makes sense.
All right, so we're already on part 2 of Sabbatean Frankists. So enter Jacob Frank. Jacob Frank was a Jewish false messiah who lived from 1726 to 1791. He claimed to be the reincarnation of Sabbatai Zevi and founded the anti-rabbinical Frankist or Zoharist sect. Frank was born in Podolia, Poland. Fuck. And his family moved to the Ottoman Empire when he was just a few months old. He later returned to Poland and presented himself as an emissary of the Donmech and a famous Kabbalist unifying Sabbatean groups and attracting many followers. So this is our boy Jacob Frank taking over for Sabbatai, under 100 years from when Sabbatai died. So now we're hanging with the Frankists. Frank taught that the overthrow and destruction of society was the only way to save mankind. Sabbatean Frankists used a belief system that neglected the strict Judaic rules, including those on decency, and even wife swapping, incest, and sex orgies were permitted. Pedophilia, Satanism, human and animal sacrifice went wherever Sabbatean Frankists went. Like under Frank declared that Lucifer is the true God.
You don't say.
Right? A quote that was preached by Frank was, do what thou wilt. Along with the Gnostic view that the Old Testament God was evil and that the best way to imitate the true God was to breach every moral code. Frank believed that if salvation can be brought upon by purity, it can be also achieved through sin. So that little do as thy wilt quote by him, remember that for when we get to the Illuminati, and they'll have their own version of it. Moving along. Slide 8. Scholars on Frank. Gershom Scholem, I'm not even pronouncing that right, but I just like saying it like that. Gershom Scholem, a Jewish professor, said of Frank, in the Messianic idea in Judaism, that was the book, in all his actions, a truly corrupt and degenerate individual, one of the most frightening phenomena in the whole of Jewish history. Rabbi Marvin Antelman describes Frankism in his book, To Eliminate the Opiate, Volume 1, a movement of complete evil. Next quote. The satanic plague devouring humanity originated with the Sabbatean Frankist cult, a satanic Jewish movement based on the Kabbalah that absorbed half the Jews of Europe in the 17th/18th century. They were chameleons, pretending to convert. The Satanist Jews infiltrated and subverted all important religions, organizations, and governments. They are the progenitors of the Illuminati, Zionism, communism, fascism, and they control Freemasonry. The NWO, brackets New World Order, is their goal. In 1988, Rabbi Gunther Plaut described Illuminati founder Jacob Frank in these terms and implied that the Nazis were a Sabbatean Frankist creation. So, through this guy's eyes, Jacob Frank was the actual Illuminati founder. Up for debate. We'll get there when we get there. Any questions? Heard.
Oh
Heard.
my gosh. This is a lot already.
Right? They're talking about us, though. We're Freemasons, aren't we?
Yes. all three of you Freemason witches.
Yes, we are. Right, Tammy?
Modus operandi of Sabbatean Frankists. In order to avoid detection, you like my new acronym there? Sabbatean Frankists. Also had a false conversion to Catholicism and Islam. Infiltration has been the foundation technique of Sabbatean Frankists since their inception. The process of being one thing while in fact being something else became the calling card of the Sabbatean Frankists. Frank was also responsible for the infiltration of the Vatican and Roman Church, Many Donmeh turned again, this time to Roman Catholicism, with the intentions of taking over the power structure.
Oy vey.
Oh boy.
So the whole thing of I know Tammy's done deep dives into like the Vatican actually being like subverted and just being pure evil and shit like that. And it could stem from this, who knows? Or it could go further back. I'm not against that, but looks like these guys. Looks like these guys had something to do with it. What slide are we on? 9. Let's add on some stuff to slide 9 here. So the Donmeh in Turkey officially converted to Islam in 1683, and the Frankists in Europe to Catholicism in 1759. The purpose of these conversions was to take over and destroy these faiths. The modus operandi continues to this day, many researchers believe. Pose as a supporter of whatever religion, culture, movement, or political party you want to control. Then maneuver your people into positions of power and influence them in the form of ministers, advisors, politicians, think tanks, executives, etc.
Oh my.
Makes sense, no?
It sure does. Sure does.
Next, slide 10. The meeting of 1773. Jacob Frank ended up in jail, but upon his release from serving a prison sentence, he headed for Frankfurt and he met up with these 3 fellas. Mayor Rothschild, Adam Weishaupt. This is a documented meeting. This is not a maybe. This for sure happened. Mayor gave Jacob Frank the title of Baron, and before the Bowers, Rothschild, or Mayor Rothschild right there, before he was Mayor Bauer. That's the guy that changed the last name from Bowers to Rothschild. If you look up the lineage of the Bowers, they were a notorious occult family going back to the Middle Ages of Germany.
So wait, he just made up that last name? Or was there some sort of like
So there
reason?
was the house that he lived at, the like families had crests back then. Mm-hmm. Or I guess still do, I don't know. And theirs had a red shield in front of their house. Rothschild translates into red shield.
Okay, I get it.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then some conspiracy researchers will go even further and say the red shield meaning too means like, I don't know if you've encountered, like, especially on X, where, like, if you start talking about Rothschilds or Rockefellers, people will be like, yeah, man, but those aren't the real families that rule the world. Check out these ones. And they list off all these Italian ones, like Onassis and fuck, I can't think of the major ones off the top of my head. But anyway, so they'll list off, like, other ones. They'll talk about the Black Pope and Jesuits. So, to them, the meaning of the red shield is, like, the Rothschild is, like the shield from the information getting to the families that actually run the world. So the Rothschilds are taking like the political or like the attention hit as far as like, yeah, we'll let the world know about us, but as far as who's behind us, we're the shield,
The
you know.
red
And
shield. Oh
do
my
you
goodness.
do you believe that conspiracy?
I'm gonna look into it eventually, but like from what I have looked into, a lot of specifically the Onassis thing recently, a lot of them have like perished and like kind of dissipated into not relevancy anymore.
Did they die of pneumonia?
Yeah, and heart attack guns.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so that's those guys. Moving along, slide 11. Bam. Bavarian Illuminati. Established on May 1st, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt was a Freemason already prior to the launch of the Illuminati. Weishaupt spent several years consolidating information and knowledge from the various influences, including the Knights Templar and Assassins. So those right there are like two groups, like how I mentioned how the story can go back a lot further than Sabbatean Frankists. Like you can be traced back to Knights Templar and the Assassins. Assassins are like a Middle East secret society that's like even closer to Jesus's time. But yeah, maybe one day we'll go there. Mesopotamian influence on Adam can be seen by the adaptation of the Persian calendar for the Illuminati. That's the calendar they used. The story of Weishaupt also involves a religious swap, surprise, such as Franks and Zevis did. Weishaupt went from Jesuit to Protestant. Two possible explanations of where the Illuminati came from, or like the name the Illuminati came from, are possibly from the Zohar, which is one of those books that I would have mentioned in the beginning, one of those Judaist texts. But anyway, so possibly the Illuminati possibly came from the Zohar, which is a body of work in the Jewish equivalent of the Bible called the Kabbalah. Zohar is the foundation of Sabbatean Frankist belief. In Hebrew, Zohar means splendor or radiance or illuminated. So some people think that's where the Illuminati name came from. Another theory is some believe the name came from a small splinter group of Gnostics in Spain called the Alumbrados. It was founded by a Spanish Jesuit, Ignatius of Loyola. The Alumbrados taught a form of Gnosticism, believing that the human spirit could attain direct knowledge of God and that the dogma of former religions were unnecessary for those who found the light. So, comments, questions, concerns? That's another reason why the Gnostics weren't really looked upon positively by other religions, or especially that form of them, because if they didn't need to seek out God or Jesus or whatever to find the light and they could find it within themselves, they couldn't really be controlled or had no reason to take part of the control grid.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to say that exact phrase. Sorry, go ahead, Tammy.
Well, no, it's something that both Ashley and I have talked about, well, I think many times, Ash. Mm-hmm. So, and I've been really, as somebody who went to church their whole life, I have gotten away from that, and not because I don't believe in God, but I've really started to get away from just religion in general, I guess. And I was actually brought up non-denominational because my dad didn't believe in religion either. But even the church, after, the last few years, everything that I've kind of learned, I've really stepped back because I don't trust it now. And I'm not knocking anybody that goes to church. I know for a lot of people, it's it brings fellowship and comfort, and I totally get that. This is just my journey with it, and I'm trying to figure that out. But this is really making me kind of reflect on that and go, because I've heard of the Gnostics, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I wasn't aware that this is that this was a thing. So this is really interesting. Sorry, Ash, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, I think that's exactly the point, Tammy, that there's a reason why we don't know much about Gnosticism, because I think that all of the world religions seem to have been inverted at some point, or at least the really amazing value systems that they have, kind of embedded within their religions, have somehow been taken over by evil people, and then even just tweaked a little bit to the point where they're not quite what they used to be. And it makes me wonder about Gnosticism and how that would, is it almost like the condensed form of all of these religions that kind of allows you to take in these religions within yourself, and all those value systems, and kind of be a spiritual being within yourself, instead of having to rely on another institution out there to kind of like show you the way. And I don't know, this is just me speculating, but anyways.
No, I'm with you on that. It's really making me sit here and reflect. Wow. Anyway,
me
sorry,
too.
Dave.
Good point from both of you, and like just like a raw translation of what was just said right there. It's like the church isn't going to want another religion out there saying like, hey, you don't even have to go to church on Sundays. Hey, you don't even have to do this and that, because you can find what God and Jesus is offering you like all on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you don't have to go to church and give us your money.
Right.
So, because we all know tithing is a thing, and whatever. And again, I'm not knocking anybody. So please, anybody listening, I'm not knocking that. It's just something that I personally have questioned and continue to question. And it's just my journey, right? But I definitely question this now. Like, this is really interesting.
I think that the idea of, let's say, crowdfunding, and I'm doing air quotes, but like tithing probably comes from like a good place in people's hearts where they want to help.
Absolutely.
So it's not that you're kind of like pooping on the idea of people giving money to help those in need.
No.
But the thing is, it's when institutions get involved, and especially, when that a lot of institutions invert the message into something, something more evil. That's
Well,
it.
yeah.
It happens every single freaking time.
It does, and like Project Gladio is a really good example of that. And if anybody's done any research into the Vatican, they have a very long history of laundering money for the CIA, and this is not speculation. That is very simply fact. They've laundered money for years and years and years for the CIA, the mafia. And the craziest part about it is the Vatican Bank does not have to disclose anything about their monetary dealings. They actually have it written in the rules that they do not have to do that. So, to me, that seems shady. If you're Catholic and you're listening to this and you're mad at me, maybe you should look into Operation Gladio because it's fact. That's all.
Cool.
All right. Now that we've lost like 33% of our audience, just kidding. Next. Okay, so before I get to the next slide, I'm going to preface on what's going to be on there. So on the left side, where am I here? On the left side, you're going to see a common answer given by like normie search engines as far as like what the goals of the Bavarian Illuminati are. Like just your Google or whatever, just your generic, what 99% of the population will find when they go searching out the goals. Versus on the right, you'll see what the goals are based on just like actual recovered documentation from the Illuminati, authors, researchers, scholars, whistleblowers on the matter. All right, so boom. On the left, the normie Google answer for the goals of the Bavarian Illuminati. To promote Republican free thought and oppose superstition, obscurantism, religious influence over public life, and abuses of state power. The Society's goals were to foster enlightenment and reason, and to ultimately create an elite group of men who would take over key positions in the state, thereby subverting the influence of the territorial princes and fostering a more rational and just society. Sure. Now, in the actual documents of the Illuminati, researchers and whistleblowers and whatnot, on the right, here's their goals. First, the abolition of government. Second, the abolition of patriotism. Third, the abolition of private property. Fourth, the abolition of all rights of inheritance. Fifth, the abolition of religion. Sixth, the abolition of the family relations. Sounds very familiar to another person's goals, too. If you know your communist goals. And this predated the Communist Manifesto, but we'll get there.
Really?
All right, so that's self-explanatory. Slide 13, bam. We're going to check out some important quotes from Mr. Weishaupt that kind of lets us take a look into his brain and things that he actually said, because, you know, when people say things, you could probably get a good judgment of their character. So, first one, the great strength of our order lies in its concealment, you don't say. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always covered by another name and another occupation. None is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it. Next to this, the form of a learned or literary society is best suited to our purpose. By establishing reading societies and subscription libraries, we may turn the public mind which way we will. In like manner, we must try to obtain influence in all offices which have any effect, either in forming or in managing or in even direction the mind of man.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
That just makes me think of I never know how to say her name, but Ghislaine Maxwell. Is that how you say it? Is it
Ghislaine?
Ghislaine? Yeah.
Jizz it up,
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
It's Ghislaine.
Jizz it up.
Her father created like basically the whole medical journal subscription thing.
Right.
Yep.
So when you hear about, like subscriptions libraries, I don't know, it just popped into my head. Anyhow, continue.
He also owned like all of the media.
Right. No,
Really?
it's good that you guys are going in this direction, because like he's talking in what, the 1800s or whatever, or
Yeah.
no, late 1700s. So like when he says like subscription libraries and stuff like that, like exactly what you're doing right now, it does translate into like nowadays media. And sorry, go on.
No, you go on.
No, you
No, but
go.
like,
No,
yeah,
you go on.
you guys are like, yeah, like you're right. Like it's like the translation of it, or like the evolution of like what that would be today, is like your media, your websites or whatever. Like you said,
Yeah.
Buddy took over that medical journal. Like, what if he's working for these guys, or whatever, your Sabbatean Frankists, and his goal was to, what was one of their tenets? It was like, whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna present it in the opposite manner because we can't actually let people know what we actually want to get like accomplished. So what if everything in that journal was just asked backwards?
The science.
What blows my mind is
Science.
how long these psychopaths have been planning this.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Which
Yeah,
which
slow burn.
which leads me to being very black pilled. Like there's no way out.
Except, you know what? It kind of makes me white pilled because now I understand it. Like,
Yes.
Well said.
I get
But-
it because they've been doing it for so long and it's been so methodical over the centuries that it actually, now that I can like trace the progression back, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay. I'm on
But
board.
okay, but
I'm
how
not
do
on
you
board with them, but
how do you white pill yourself to like stop it from happening?
well, I think what Tammy was kind of referring to a bit earlier, like we need to, well, and we've talked about it in a bunch of our episodes, like we can't loosh, we can't get into this negative energy field. We have to, kind of like rise above it, and they're going
And
to
that's
keep trying to
hard.
drag us
Very
down.
hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
I for sure have moments like I have my black pilled days, and usually people can tell because I'm extra ragey, and then I have my white pill days. But
Where she's like, I love you.
yeah. But what I can't wrap my head around, and I don't know, Dave, maybe you can shed some light on this, but the part that I truly, truly do not understand is okay, so going all the way back to when this started, what on earth is it that these people want? Like, what is the end game? Because these people, so going back to this dude, Adam, obviously he's not immortal and he knew that. And so he's going to die. So knowing that we're not immortal, like, why do they continue to pass this down for like, why?
Centuries.
So
I think they're aliens.
that too.
Well, this is what I start to wonder, because I'm like, and not to sound crazy, but I mean, at this point, fuck, half the people listening probably already think I'm the crazy one, so that's fine. But there's got to be something more if they continue to do this. And I'm not saying it's real, but I started watching They Live last night, and I was like, oh no.
You watched what? What'd you watch?
What is that?
They Live.
They Live?
Okay, so you guys have all, Dave, I'm just going to say this, then I'll give it back to you.
No worries.
You guys have all seen the meme where the guy has like a mullet and he's wearing sunglasses and he's looking at the sign and it says obey.
Yeah.
That's from the movie. And I posted like one for Mark Carney yesterday. So basically, short story is this like kind of vagrant guy who's kind of cute for being in the 80s. He finds these glasses, and when he puts them on, he's able to see that like every single billboard, every single magazine, every form of advertisement ever is like a subliminal message, and we don't see it. But when he puts the glasses on, the covers of magazines are just black and white, and they say like obey, stay asleep, do as you're told, whatever. And then he also is able to see that like a good majority of the people walking around are like these robot alien people. Okay, this
Giants.
sounds super lame.
Giants.
It's honestly actually pretty good. But he's able to see that it's them, and they're actually trying to take control over the population, and he like starts to fight them, and it's pretty badass. But I'm halfway through and I'm going to watch the rest tonight. That's all. Okay, bye.
That sounds good. And I will just add that I think they're probably reptilian robot giant aliens.
Obviously, that's the only obvious answer.
Given. Okay, so your question about what they want, we're gonna answer, or I'm gonna give like a more elaborate answer at the end of this, but a
Okay.
quick one right now that I can come up with, or like that I would give you to hold on to for now, is like this whole process is so compartmentalized where not everybody is in it for the same reason,
Oh.
Okay.
right? So
Dun,
like
dun, dun.
people at the peak at the very tip, if you want to look at it as a pyramid, will
Just
have
the
one
tip?
reason. Just the tip.
Just the tip.
Will have one reason. The ones below will have another. The ones below that, like lower you get on the pyramid, you eventually hit the people that like just in it for the money. And then as you get
Okay.
higher, like want to control a country. As you get higher,
Oh, you're
Right.
talking
Right.
about that pyramid thing,
yeah,
like the breakdown.
right, but not necessarily like, yeah.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, just like that tells you about like pretty much just, like how the world's operated, or like the conspiracy pyramid, or yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on.
Can I-
Behold our secret.
Can I?
Sorry,
just,
go ahead, Suze.
I just wanted to say that I'm really struggling here because I'm sitting in the dark and it is really hurting my eyeballs.
I'll go with a dark theme next time I do one of these. All right, next quote. Behold our secret. Remember that the end justifies the means. Okay, so that takes us back to do as thou wilt. So remember good old Sabotage Zevi, his fucking slogan there was do as thy wilt. Well, remember the end justifies the means, pretty much same shit. Right? And then that literally means like need to kill someone to keep this plan going, go ahead, do it. Need to fucking whatever, rape someone, go ahead, do it.
For the
Need to-
greater good.
Yeah. Anyways, next quote. These government powers are despots when they do not conduct themselves by the order's principles. It is therefore our duty to surround them with its members so that the profane, non-illuminated persons may have no access to them. Thus we are able most powerfully to promote the order's interests. If any person is most disposed to listen to princes, then the order, he is not fit for it, and must rise no higher. We must do our utmost to procure the advancement of Illuminati into all important civil offices. Makes a lot of sense if they succeeded. Next quote. Next slide, which is the last one with quotes. It was not my intention to doubt the doctrines of the Illuminati and the principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more fully satisfied of this fact than I am. George Washington. Acknowledged the Illuminati. The conspiracy against civilization dates from the days of Weishaupt. As a modern historian, Miss Webster has so ably shown, it played a recognizable role on the French Revolution. Winston Churchill acknowledging that the Adam Weishaupt and Illuminati could have messed around with the French Revolution. Weishaupt wrote that the Illuminati members must speak sometimes in one way, sometimes in another, so that one's real purpose should remain impenetrable to one's inferior. Again, just lie to get your goal accomplished. Next, I have been convinced that we, as an order, have come under the power of some very evil occult order, profoundly versed in science, both occult and otherwise, though not infallible, their methods being black magic, that is to say, electromagnetic power, hypnotism, and powerful suggestion. We are convinced that the order is being controlled by some sun order, after the nature of the Illuminati, if not by that order itself. That is a master Freemason talking in 1794, how he has the gut feeling that Freemasonry has been infiltrated by the Illuminati. And then last but not least, not all Freemasons are Illuminati. However, all Illuminati are Freemasons. They managed to infiltrate all the Freemason lodges.
Dave, that
Yo.
second last quote, that's not Duke Franz Ferdinand, is it?
It could be.
Franz Ferdinand? Wasn't that the start of the First World War? Like when he was assassinated?
Yeah, but there's like
a
Duke.
part of it.
Yeah, there's different like Duke Ferdinands, and there's like numbers to their names, and there's like a
Okay.
different name after the Duke part. So if it was the start of the World War, I'm gonna say no, because
Oh, right.
1794
Of course. Duh.
would have been
I wasn't paying attention.
would have
to
been a
that part.
hell nah. Next, just a little bit more proof. In 1789, John Robison warned all Masonic leaders in America that the Illuminati had infiltrated into their lodges, and on July 19th, 1789, David Papin, president of Harvard University, issued the same warning to the graduating class and informed them that of the influence of Illuminism was having on American politics and religion. To top this off, John Quincy Adams, who had organized the New England Masonic Lodges and also the 6th President of the United States, issued warnings in the form of 3 letters he wrote to top Mason Colonel William L. Stone. Those letters you can find online in that library. Yeah, for anybody that wants to search up those letters, they'll come up like on in that library's website. In the letters, Adams exposed how Jefferson, that's right, Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd President of the United States, was using Masonic lodges for subversive, illuministic purposes. And then those, yeah, I've already said that. Those 3 letters can be found in that library and online. Any questions?
That library, like that physical library as well?
Yeah, you can go to that library and see those letters, or like if they'll let you. I don't know what the rule is for that.
And
but those actual...
That library has been burnt down?
Right. I wouldn't be surprised. But then the actual ones can be found like online, like pictures of them and stuff at that library's website. Boom. 2 years after Weishaupt, in 1832. Okay, so right now we're going to go down a tentacle of the story where we go to North America. The story could have continued, or like paying attention to the story, you could have gone a completely different way, and you could have stayed with the Rothschilds in Europe, then going to England and whatnot, and then you would encounter like the Round Table and Cecil Rhodes and Lord Alfred Milner and all these other characters. But they connect again afterwards. But the way that I took was that I went across the pond to North America, which we're going to continue on here. So in 1832, which was just 2 years after the death of Adam Weishaupt, William Huntington Russell returned from studying abroad in Germany, where his head was filled with the philosophy of reason taught by George William Friedrich Hegel. If you don't know who that guy is the inventor of problem, reaction, solution, otherwise known as, what was it called again? The Hegelian dialectic. Yeah. So when David Icke talks about problem, reaction, solution, it's just a remixed version of Hegel's Hegelian dialectic or dialect, where, you need a problem, you get a reaction, you get a solution, you can control events in that way. Anyways, Russell returned to Yale with the notion of creating a second chapter of a secret society he became fond of back in Germany. Depending on the source, the creation of this second chapter was Russell's idea that he was granted permission to execute, or this was something that he was tasked with doing. So, when you see the Skull and Bones logo, you're going to see 322 in it. Possible explanation of why that exists in there. The year it was founded was 1832, so if you take the 32... and then if you add a 2, because it's the second chapter of its kind, you end up with 322. Other possible explanations, I don't tend to believe these ones as much because it's very random sounding, but authors have included them in their books. 322 has a significance in the order's logo because of a Genesis verse, 322, which reads, "And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." Weird. Maybe there is something behind that where they're trying to stop us from, I don't know, discovering immortality, but then why wouldn't have they discovered it? And then some consider 322 number.
Adrenochrome.
True. Mind blown. Some consider the 322 number as possibly being a shout out to ancient figures such as Aristotle or Demosthenes, who both died in 322 BC. So which secret society did Russell copy, if any? Again, here lies 2 possibilities. It's either the Bavarian Illuminati, and then apparently the Bavarian Illuminati within itself had like a higher up little sect called the Society of Brothers in Unity. Whatever. Could be one or the other. But we're going to examine why it was the Illuminati. Slide 17. Skull and Bones, the Order, a.k.a. Brotherhood of Death. In 1832, Yale students William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft co-founded the Order of Skull and Bones. The Russell family was a core player in the British-influenced Opium Wars in China. So Buddy's family was... William Huntington Russell that created Skull and Bones, his family prior to him, like his dad, whatever, grandparents, were already taking part in these opium wars. So if you know anything about these opium wars, and if you're a key player in them, you are conversing with people like the Rothschilds and like the monarchy, because the king and queen and the Rothschilds had a lot to do with those opium wars. Alphonso Taft went on to serve as the Secretary of War and Attorney General. and he gave birth to someone named William Howard Taft, which we will talk about in a second.
Can I add something?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Alfonso gave birth to this person?
Yeah. Oh, Alfonso's wife did.
Oh, okay.
His semen made him happy.
I was going to say, wait a second. Like, were men having babies back then?
Maybe we've been wrong the whole time.
Holy shit.
Right? Just more on like the descendants of these two people. So William Huntington Russell, he's a descendant of Nodiah Russell, who, along with James Pierpont, like J.P. Morgan, J.P. that one, founded Yale. James Pierpont's daughter, so James Pierpont now is a co-associate of Nodiah Russell. His daughter ends up marrying William Huntington Russell. Then James Pierpont's granddaughter went on to marry the J.P. Morgan.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Huh. Wait, before you go on, I just wanted
Sure.
to say that when you say the Opium Wars, the thing is, like, think about what's happening, like places like Afghanistan. I mean, they're still going on. And it's probably, I mean, I'm just speculating, but it's probably the same thing. You know, like look at what we have happening with fentanyl around, you know, in Canada and around the world. Like that's still like an opiate. And so like I wonder if that's just like a what am I trying to say? Like it's the same thing. It's just like a different
Right.
version of the drug.
And it has multiple like reasons to do it too. You get in there, you start making profits, start making money. You can destabilize a country at the same time.
Yeah, like they've had history doing this thing, so I'm assuming it's kind of like the same people behind the scenes, just you know, like their ancestors started it and they're still going.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, for sure. So this Alfonso Taft character, the guy, well, sorry, his semen that was used to create William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft ended up being, and still is till this day, the only person to serve as United States President and Chief Justice of the United States. Funny how all these people just managed to give birth and have families that all just run countries.
Very interesting.
Further dot connecting, where are we at here? Slide 18. On September 29th, 1876, a group calling itself the Order of File and Claw broke into the Skull and Bones headquarters, which you can see over there called The Tomb. The Order of File and Claw distributed a pamphlet which showcased what was found inside the lair of Skull and Bones. Apparent pictures of the members back in Germany that the society was modeled after were inside the tomb. An old engraving on the west wall which depicted an open burial vault with 4 human skulls, a fool's cap and bells, an open book, several mathematical instruments, a beggar's scrip, and a royal crown. This engraving was accompanied by a card that read, "From the German chapter, presented by D.C. Gilman." D.C. Gilman stands for Daniel Coit Gilman, which served as a treasurer of Russell Trust. Russell Trust is what Skull and Bones is incorporated into. Skull and Bones is has an actual business, like registered, but they're registered as Russell Trust. And then that being said, Daniel Coit Gilman obviously became a Skull and Bones member, and he was also the first president of Johns Hopkins University. No big deal.
No big deal. No big deal.
All right, so that was slide 18. The report, let's add some stuff on here. The report mentions in how above the arches to room 322 in the building, a painted slogan can be found that's written in German. The English translation of the slogan is, "Who was the fool? Who was the wise man, beggar, or king? Whether poor or rich, all's the same in death." So remember that John Robsinghan that we mentioned before, the Freemason and Bavarian Illuminati defector turned whistleblower? In his book, Proofs of a Conspiracy, he prints excerpts from the Illuminati ritual manuals confiscated by Bavarian police in 1785. And in those excerpts from the Illuminati manuals, he finds the exact same slogan. And that made its way all the way over here from Germany when there was only boats back then to travel in between the two countries. Visual break. Let's check out inside the tomb. So that's what inside the tomb looks like. For those of you listening, sorry.
Doesn't look very tomby.
No. Looks rather creepy, though. All right, next in the tomb. Boom, more in the tomb. Cool. Or some skull and bones is on the left side there. Yeah. All right, cool.
There's that
And
322.
Yeah, 322, just running wild.
What do we
Next
have?
up,
Some like antlers on the walls, like kind of over our head, a bunch of paintings of probably Skull and Bones members, the German guys.
or
Something like
founding members, or over here, or
Yeah.
back to German guys, whatever.
Just describing
Whatever.
for the drivers out there who or the people doing other stuff other than watching this video.
Yeah, and I made sure to take a screen cap that involved the official Yale website to show that like these pictures are legit because a bunch of them came from the official Yale's website. The next slide. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Because the next slide is going to be like a 3-minute clip.
What does Yale say about this? Like, do they admit to this still being a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So, like, present day, they admit that Skull and Bones is still going on.
Yeah. At one point, they even like Skull and Bones had taken over the controlling the finances of Yale.
Nothing to see there.
Nothing.
Wow. Okay.
Not allowed in there. What is it? You get picked in your junior year. 15 people get picked. You only start entering that tomb, and once you enter your last year of being in Yale, and yeah, it's called tap day when you get picked. You wait however many years to actually enter the place. You take part. Not everybody becomes like someone that continues on with the group like after leaving Yale. It just depends on how devoted you want to be to like all the fucked up shit they do. No big deal. Next is going to be a clip of prominent Skull and Bones members from one of my videos. Sit back, relax. Here we go. Bonesmen and their industries. Government and intelligence. Prescott Bush, Skull and Bones, class of 1917. More on him funding Nazis later.
What the hell did you just say?
George H.W. Bush, Skull and Bones, class of 1948. CIA director and former president. George W. Bush, Skull and Bones, class of 1968. 43rd President of the United States, Governor of Texas. McGeorge Bundy, Skull and Bones, class of 1940. He was the 5th National Security Advisor under JFK and Lyndon B. Johnson. William Bundy, Skull and Bones, 1939. Longtime CIA analyst, 9th Assistant Secretary of State for East Indian and Pacific Affairs. Which brings us to the father of these Bundy brothers, Harvey Hollister Bundy, Skull and Bones, 1909. Appointed by Henry L. Stimson as Special Assistant to the Secretary of War during World War II, Boston attorney at Putnam Bell. Henry Stimson, Skull and Bones, 1888.
Fucking nerd.
He served as Secretary of War under President William Howard Taft, which is the son of the founder of Skull and Bones, Secretary of State under President Herbert Hoover, and again Secretary of War under President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman, overseeing American military efforts during World War II.
In a journal entry by Roosevelt's Secretary of War Henry Stimson, dated November 25, 1941, he documented a conversation he had with Roosevelt. The question was, how should we maneuver them into firing the first shot? It was desirable to make sure the Japanese be the ones to do this, so that there should remain no doubt as to who were the aggressors.
Next up, F. Truby Davison, Skull and Bones, 1918. Director of Personnel for the CIA, Assistant United States Secretary of War, in office July 1926 to March 1933. Next up, brother of F. Truby, Henry Pomeroy Davison Jr., Skull and Bones, 1920. We'll come back to him when we take a look at Skull and Bones and their influence on media. The father of the Davison brothers I just mentioned, Henry Pomeroy Davison Sr. Claims exist that he was also a Skull and Bones member, however, finding a definitive year of his membership is difficult. Henry Sr. is known for being a banker and philanthropist. In 1909, he became a senior partner at J.P. Morgan & Company, and in 1910, he was a participant in the secretive meeting on Jekyll Island, Georgia, that laid the foundation for the creation of the Federal Reserve System in 1913. Now that we have mentioned J.P. Morgan, stay tuned for additional money-printing banking families to be painted into this picture. All right. So those were some prominent Skull and Bones members. And then that clip that had to do with World War One. Was it Henry Stimson that I mentioned there? He was talking to someone as far as like how to get the U.S. involved into the war. And if you research what went on during World War II. There's a lot of signs pointing to that, like those bombs dropping from Japan were like people knew they were coming. They were even enticed to like do it, and they just didn't stop it from happening. So they had an excuse to enter World War II.
Huh.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
Concerns. Gee.
I mean,
All the
what
Go ahead.
I'd like to say is that it's interesting to see how involved they've been in prominent positions during kind of, well, world wars, like very, very important events in the world. And as we're going through what we are right now in the world, we see what's happening in Israel and what's happening in Ukraine, and it definitely feels manufactured to me. I know a lot. There are a lot of people out there who think there's real concerns and that what's been happening in those air quotes wars are real. But to me, like as I've been watching along, it seems to me like they've just been I don't know, like I feel like there are some key players in there who are probably Skull and Bones members that have done just the same thing over and over again.
yeah, or the equivalent of.
Yeah.
Yeah, like are there any signs that point to who today's prominent members would be? Dave?
Yeah, yeah. That's when you start looking at your WEF people and your Trilateral Commission and your Council on Foreign Relations. Because as you'll see shortly, it all connects into that. Next
Bilderberg.
slide.
And what's the other one that you
Bilderberg.
just mentioned, Tammy? The Europe
Yeah, Tammy had one.
something.
Tammy went to the washroom.
Oh,
Tammy's peeing. All right, well,
She wrote in the chat that she went to the washroom.
I can't see the chat. I'm sorry.
Anyways, go
Anyways, next slide. Another little clip. Skull and Bones and the Mockingbird Media. And then as we encounter this clip, just remind yourselves or keep in the back of your head of how many of these Skull and Bones members had positions in the CIA, were CIA heads, or just had influence in the CIA. Because you'll see why. Next.
Can't wait.
John M. Walker Sr., Skull and Bones 1931, was an American physician and investment banker. Walker's older sister, Dorothy, married President Bush's father, Senator Prescott Bush. Henry Luce, or Luce, was born in China and arrived in the U.S. at the age of 15, was co-founder of Time Inc., which is the publisher of Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated magazines. It is reported that Henry and his magazine empire was a devoted participant of Operation Mockingbird.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Gotcha, bitch.
Yes.
So yeah,
Dave Chappelle.
There was-
Love it.
right? There was the CIA pretty much not being able to talk about their involvement in the media, which kind of, to me, means they're involved in the media, no?
yeah.
Sure does.
And I do find it very interesting that Sports Illustrated is one of the ones that was mentioned, because if you see what's happening with it now, and you think about, like, say, the swimsuit model issue, which used
Right.
to be beautiful, fit women, and now it's like fat blobs or old ladies or dudes.
Yep.
Oh my god!
Chunkosauruses.
So it's like inverted.
Yep. Stemming back from 1626. All right, next slide, last video. Skull and Bones and banking ties, because I don't know, me personally, like the banking system is the biggest thing wrong in the world. Yeah, so just Skull and Bones and their banking ties. Rothschild, Rockefeller, and Morgan connections. Starting with J. Richardson Dilworth, Skull and Bones 1938, he was a longtime manager of the Rockefeller fortune. Next up, Harold Stanley, Skull and Bones 1908, joined Morgan's Guaranty Trust banking firm in 1915 and eventually became a partner in the merged Morgan Stanley and Company. W. Averill Harriman, Skull and Bones 1913, was a board member of Guaranty Trust. More on him later. H.P. Whitney, Skull and Bones 1894, and his father, W.C. Whitney, Skull and Bones 1863, were both directors of Morgan's Guaranty Trust. Amory Howe Bradford, Skull and Bones 1943, married Carol Warburg Rothschild in 1941 and soon became general manager of the New York Times. Breaking news, shout out to Fun Acceptable Views, aka Ash from the Broadcast Podcast, for finding me a picture of Amory Bradford Howe. Here it is. Thanks, girl. Go follow her and everybody else on the Broadcast Podcast. Now back to the video. The Warburgs control Deutsche Bank and BNP. Paul Wahlberg was a Federal Reserve founder as well. We shall have world government whether or not we'd like it. The only question is whether world government will be achieved by conquest or consent. Paul Wahlberg.
Shut up, bitch!
Nothing to see there. Moving along. Percy A. Rockefeller, Skull and Bones 1900. He was a businessman and philanthropist. A Rockefeller series will be made on this channel at some point, so we'll circle back to that family. Here's a quick story in relation to the most recently mentioned characters.
If your dog is lost, you don't look for an hour and then call it quits. You get your ass out there and you find that fucking dog.
Jacob Schiff, who was a financier of the Bolshevik Revolution, the top guy at Cohn, Loeb & Co., and also the Schiffs, you might not know, shared a house with the Rothschilds in Frankfurt, Germany during the later half of the 18th century, which means they also must have met this guy. So anyways, Jacob Schiff financed the purchase of the Union Pacific Railroad for railroad tycoon Edward H. Harriman. Edward Harriman's control over transport costs aided John D. Rockefeller in monopolizing the petroleum industry in the late 1800s. Rockefeller had an exclusive deal with Harriman to transport his petroleum that would drive Rockefeller's competitors out of business and force them to sell their business to Rockefeller. Edward Harriman is the father of the previously mentioned William Averill Harriman, Skull and Bones 1913. During the 1930s, W. Averill Harriman's banking firm named W. A. Harriman and Company merged with the private international banking firm of Brown Brothers, creating Brown Brothers Harriman and Company. A longtime partner of Brown Brothers Harriman and Company was Prescott Bush. The Harrimans were considered mentors to the Bush family. Averill Harriman also held ownership in UBC. UBC stands for United Banking Corporation, and here's an explanation of Prescott Bush, UBC, and quite the scandal.
One other treasonous organization worth mentioning is the Union Banking Corporation of New York City. Not only did it finance numerous aspects of Hitler's rise to power, along with actual materials during the war, it was also a Nazi money laundering bank, which was eventually exposed for having millions of dollars of Nazi money in its vaults. The Union Banking Corporation of New York was eventually seized for violations of the Trading with the Enemy Act. Guess who the director and vice president of the Union Bank was? Prescott Bush, our current president's grandfather, and of course our former president's father.
Ooh.
Keep that in mind when considering the moral and political dispositions of the Bush family.
Cool.
Wow.
Cool. So, like, I don't know about you guys, but the more and more, like, I look at this, like, none of these people that, like, say they're either Republican or Democrat or Christian or Jewish or whatever, they're not actually those things. They have their own little clique, like the ones at the very top. They have their own little clique that, for whatever reason, they want to take over the world, and they just assign themselves to be something in the public image, but they're not actually that. They don't actually care to be that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, next slide. Welcome to the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations, it's CFR's origins started in France after World War I at the 1919 Paris Peace Conference. President Woodrow Wilson attended these meetings in Paris with his sidekick Colonel House and numerous delegates, which included, now check out these familiar names after everything we've just read. Allen Dulles came with him. Averill Harriman, who we just learned about his dad buying that railroad to help out Rockefeller create a monopoly. Averill Harriman himself being in Skull and Bones, CFR. Henry Stimson, that Secretary of War, Skull and Bones, CFR. John Foster Dulles. And then a couple of bankers. And this isn't only This isn't the only people that went with him. This is just some major ones. Thomas Lamont, banker for J.P. Morgan and Co. Bernard Baruch, business partner of John D. Rockefeller Jr. Cool. So a lot of the men and ideas that accompanied President Wilson and his sidekick House to the Paris Peace Conference were taken from a set of meetings that took place in 1917. Still during World War I, when House gathered about 100 prominent men to discuss the post-war world, dubbing themselves the Inquiry. The Inquiry made plans for a peace settlement. They were globalist in nature, calling for the removal of all economic barriers between nations, equality of trade conditions, and the formation of a general association of nations. So already it's still a continuation of the plan. You know what I mean? Like, to get rid of your nations and whatnot. Like that was already stated back in the Illuminati section of this presentation. Like, the plan just continues. Right? So, comments, questions, concerns. Lots of concerns. Comments, questions. Heard.
Well, it has me thinking about the Titanic too. Because you can tie that into. That was what. When did it allegedly sink? Like 1912?
I don't know.
We know.
Oh, don't even get me started on the Titanic. I was talking to
Yeah.
somebody about this today. Lies.
You were?
Yeah. I Europa pilled my coworker and then told her that the Titanic was all a lie.
And did she start crying and say, "But what about Jack?"
No, she was just staring, and I was like, "I'm so sorry."
Okay,
And
sorry,
she's
bye.
like, "It's all lies." And then I was like, "Okay, have a good rest of your drive." And I got
All right, so attending this Paris Peace Conference, where did the funding come from? Financial support and diplomatic efforts were contributed to these meetings by Jacob Schiff, Frank Vanderlip, Nelson Aldrich, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, and Paul Warburg. So, if you remember earlier on in the slides, Jacob Schiff, he grew up and his family, the Schiffs, shared a house with the Rothschilds in Germany. They had two families living in the same house. It was the Schiffs and the Rothschilds.
What?
So,
Wait, what?
Yep. So the Rothschilds, when they lived in Germany, right after the time frame of when we met Mayor Rothschild, they were living in a house with another family, and that other family was the Schiffs.
Oh.
And this is the Jacob Schiff, a descendant of the people that lived in that house. Frank Vanderlip, Nelson Aldrich, J.P. Morgan, and blah, blah, Paul Warburg. So a little bit on this Paul Warburg character. Paul Warburg was a German-American banker, was a member of the prominent Warburg banking family. His brother Felix Warburg married Frieda Schiff, the daughter of Jacob Schiff, a prominent banker and Rothschild family associate. So you have Jacob Schiff that lived in the same house with the Rothschilds, that had a daughter who married this Paul Warburg guy, who now they're all hanging out and funding a Paris Peace Conference and amongst other things coming up. How fucked up is that? Anyways, who are we at here? We are at Paul Warburg.
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
Do you know if Adam Schiff, the cuck,
I can't find it.
The senator for California right now, is he related?
One of these
to
Schiffs? I've tried finding a connection and I can't find one.
Which doesn't mean it's not there.
Right, but if it is, it's scrubbed the hell off the internet.
Okay, interesting.
Okay. So Mr. Warburg received a Rothschild's education, who received his education in international banking in Europe, specifically in Frankfurt, where he was educated by the Rothschilds. Warburg's role in the Federal Reserve. Paul Warburg was a key figure in the creation of the Federal Reserve System in the United States. He drafted the Federal Reserve Act and was appointed the first chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. So you have a guy that has married Jacob Schiff's daughter, Schiff, that grew up with the Rothschilds, is now your very first person sitting on the Federal Reserve Board that controls all the money in the United States. Cool. Rothschild influence on Mr. Warburg here. The Rothschilds, through their agents, including the Warburgs, Cohen Lobenko, and J. Henry Schroeder Banking Company, exerted significant influence over the Federal Reserve System and the U.S. banking system as a whole. Warburg's connections to Nazi Germany. Paul Warburg's brother Max Warburg was a key figure in financing Nazi Germany, and Paul Warburg himself had connections to the German government during World War I. Next. So it's a good time to bring up this meeting, the Jekyll Island meeting, which was where these men and some others went secretly to an island off the coast of Georgia where they used fake names, where they had a meeting and they drafted the actual Federal Reserve Act. That Senator Nelson Aldrich guy is the one that was actually in government that presented it as if it was his own, but it wasn't. It was all written by these people at this secret meeting. The meeting that took place on Jekyll Island on a property owned by J.P. Morgan. Right. Moving along in this. We're almost done. The CFR is born. At the end of World War I, 1918, Lionel Curtis, who connects to Milner, Rhodes, and the Rothschilds, was tasked with extending the reach of the Round Table. A public front organization for the Round Table was created in 1919 called the Royal Institute of International Affairs. It is otherwise known as Chatham House. Why the two names, I don't know. Maybe that first one is way too long, and they're like, yeah, check this shorter name, Chatham House. But I don't know. And this, again, remember earlier on how I mentioned, like, if you would have stayed with the Rothschilds in the story, not gone to Skull and Bones, you would have encountered the Round Table and all these people. Well, now all these people are meeting back up again at this Paris Peace Conference. May 19th, 1999, during the Paris Peace Conference, a meeting is hosted by Colonel House that saw Round Table members attend, along with some of those delegates that Wilson came with. So, the meeting took place at the Majestic Hotel in Paris, which started the commitment amongst its attendees to create the Council on Foreign Relations. Colonel House was the host of the meeting, but the coordinator was, wait for it, Baron Edmund de Rothschild, which is pictured in that picture that you're looking at right now, which is yet another continuation of the plan going. This guy is a descendant of Mayor Rothschild that we learned about however many slides ago, is now taking part in the Paris Peace Conference meetings from people that are affiliated with Skull and Bones that also probably came from the Illuminati. And yeah, the connection is real. Any questions? No? Heard. A little bit on this Colonel House fucker. Colonel House, regarded by many as the actual president when serving as advisor to President Woodrow Wilson. Wilson is even quoted as calling him his alter ego. Colonel House was a self-described Marxist socialist who in 1921 just so happened to write a book titled Philip Drew Administrator. In this book, the following things happened to occur. Conspiracies to establish a central bank, a graduated income tax plan, both stated goals in Marx's Communist Manifesto, and plans to control both political parties in this made-up book that he did. 2 years later, 2, if not 3 of the predictions happened to come true in reality. Next, short clip about Colonel House's role in World War I.
In 1914, European wars broke out centered around England and Germany. The American public wanted nothing to do with the war. In turn, President Woodrow Wilson publicly declared neutrality. However, under the surface, the U.S. administration was looking for any excuse it could find to enter it. In a noted observation by Secretary of State William Jennings, the large banking interests were deeply interested in the World War because of the wide opportunities for large profits. It's important to understand that the most lucrative thing that can happen for the international bankers is war, for it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest. Woodrow Wilson's top advisor and mentor was Colonel Edward House, a man with intimate connections with the international bankers who wanted in the war. In a documented conversation between Colonel House, Wilson's advisor, and Sir Edward Grey, the Foreign Secretary of England, regarding how to get America into the war, Grey inquired, "What will Americans do if Germans sink an ocean liner with American passengers on board?" House responded, "I believe that a flame of indignation would sweep the United States, and that by itself would be sufficient to carry us into war." So, on May 7, 1915, on essentially the suggestion of Sir Edward Grey, a ship called the Lusitania was deliberately sent into German-controlled waters, where German military vessels were known to be. And, as expected, German U-boats torpedoed the ship, exploding stored ammunition, killing 1,200 people. To further understand the deliberate nature of this setup, the German embassy actually put advertisements in the New York Times telling people that if they boarded the Lusitania, they did so at their own risk, as such a ship sailing from America to England through the war zone would be liable to destruction. In turn, and as anticipated, the sinking of the Lusitania caused a wave of anger among the American population, and America entered the war a short time after. The First World War caused 323,000 American deaths. J.D. Rockefeller made $200 million off of it. Not to mention the war cost about $30 billion for America, most of which was borrowed from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest, furthering the profits of the international bankers.
So yeah, every reason why we've ever been in a war is all lies. Well, the U.S. anyways. Cool. Next clip, last clip. Presidents and their secretaries of secretaries of defense. Every president in this picture was or is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations or had a vice president that was a member. The position of Secretary of War, later changed to Secretary of Defense, has been held by a CFR member for every major military conflict. Henry L. Stimson, Secretary of War during World War I and World War II, and a member of Skull and Bones. John McCloy, Assistant Secretary of War during World War II, President of the World Bank after World War II. Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense during the Vietnam War, future President of the World Bank, and a member of Skull and Bones. Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War, future Vice President during the Iraq War, and a member of Skull and Bones.
What the fuck is this? I don't know.
Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense during the Iraq War, former President and CEO of G.D. Searle and Company, a wholly owned subsidiary of Pfizer. Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense during the botched Afghanistan withdrawal and during the current Ukraine-Russia war.
Fucking nerd. Motherfucker, I'm here.
I follow back all accounts. So yeah, some facts to add here as we wrap this biatch up. The elegant Harold Pratt House in New York City was donated by the Pratt family, a well-known tentacle of Rockefeller Standard Oil, once the CFR grew out of their initial headquarters. Their initial headquarters was just like some restaurant. The Harold Pratt House is in use by the CFR until this day and resides 1.9 miles away from the headquarters of the UN. How convenient. If you follow the CFR story deep enough, the Council on Foreign Relations has a major role to play in the creation of the UN, and the actual property that the UN sits on in New York was donated to it by the Rockefellers, of course. More recently, a second base of operations for the CFR can be found in Washington, D.C., where it is situated just 1 block away from the White House. Admission to the Council on Foreign Relations is a very discriminating and painful process. Candidates must be proposed by a member, seconded by another member, approved by a membership committee, screened by the professional staff, and finally approved by the board of directors. Here's some pictures of that house. Cool. More pictures of the house, where they roll, where they go. Yeah. Heard. And then I'm not going to get into it here, but the Council on Foreign Relations also has like a pay and play thing for companies where you can pay X amount of dollars a year to be part of their like corporate aspect of membership, where big corporations will meet up with Council on Foreign Relations members, which could be, again, government heads, industry heads, and just like talk behind closed doors X amount of times a year, which is like, since when does government and business talk secretly behind doors about stuff? I don't know. I just find that shit weird. Next, the numbers, presidents, and CFR staff. JFK, start with him, was given a list of 82 people to help staff his State Department. 63 of those belonged to the Council on Foreign Relations. Among them were McGeorge Bundy. These are all names we've heard in this presentation. McGeorge Bundy, considered Allen Dulles an uncle. William Bundy found his way into JFK's Defense Department, and Robert McNamara and Walt Rastow also made the roster. Lyndon B. Johnson. During the Johnson years, the president was surrounded by advisors collectively known as his wise men. All were members of the CFR. These included John McCloy, who was CFR and an advisor to I.G. Farben, of course, Avril Harriman, Dean Rusk, William Bundy, Dean Acheson, George F. Kennan, Robert A. Lovett, who was Secretary of Defense, Bilderberg member, CFR, blah, blah, blah. Next, Nixon. Nixon became Dulles' mouthpiece while he was in Congress from 1947 to 1950. During this time, Harry Truman was president. Truman was never fully in the pocket of the global cult, and as a result, only served one term as president. Once Nixon became president, he was a full-fledged puppet of the CFR. Nixon's administration placed at least 115 CFR members in key positions in the executive branch. The vast majority of these men were still around when Ford's administration began. On to Reagan. Reagan's 59-member transition team responsible for selection and screening of candidates for major governmental posts consisted of 28 CFR members, 10 Bilderbergers, and 10 trilateralists. Among them featured such outsiders as Henry Kissinger, Alexander Haig, George Shultz, Donald Rumsfeld, and Alan Greenspan. George H.W. Bush, a CFR member himself, as well as a former CIA director and vice president. George H.W. Bush had only 387 in his admin that were a combination of Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission members. Bill Clinton, the start of the Clinton presidency saw 100 plus CFR members obtain roles in Billy Boy's administration. George W. Bush. Bush's cabinet included Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Elaine Chao, Robert M. Gates, Josh B. Bolton, and Susan Schwab, all CFR members. There's more, but those are like the prominent ones. Last, for the record, goals. The stated goals of the Bavarian Illuminati and communism have identical goals. The protocols of the Elders of Zion also mimics the previously mentioned two. It's all the same shit. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not here to argue who started it, but it's all the same shit. Also, the Rothschilds created communism, Zionism, and the State of Israel. Don't care what anybody says. All true. China, let's bring that into the picture, is the blueprint for the rest of the world. If you continue researching this down further and you encounter the Trilateral Commission, which was founded in 1973 by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski, whose daughter is on MSNBC, one learns quickly that the Trilateral Commission aided to get China to where it is now. Through the Trilateral Commission and David Rockefeller and this Brzezinski character, they kind of pulled China out of the shithole that it was in the late 70s, and it's easier to deal with a dictator, and started the technocracy. The technocracy blueprint, which is the end game. The end game is an AI-operated technocracy where politicians serve the technocrats and common folk are their cattle. The end.
Holy shit.
Well then.
Ta-da! Black Pill City. So yeah, that's that.
Stop, you're gonna make us loosh.
Loosh. So, back to your question earlier of what do they want. Here's what I think they want. The people at the very top, the ones that are like still like, yo, I'm Sabbatean Frankist, fucking to my core, I represent them. I think they are herding Jewish people into Israel and then creating conflict there in an attempt to get someone to drop a nuclear bomb on Israel so they can get revenge on the people that extradited and shoot away their leaders. They're getting revenge for Sabbatai Zevi and for Jacob Frank, the ones that were excommunicated by the traditional Jewish folk. I think that's one thing. Other people just want all the money in the world, or want a whole bunch of money. Other people just want
Power.
I don't know, to run a country. It's a game for them. The people that have been convinced that Zionism was created organically or as like a just cause or whatever, maybe they just want that whole thing of what was it, that tower getting rebuilt and the Messiah coming back and Jewish people reigning supremely. It's just, yeah, so it's all compartmentalized, I think. And there isn't just one end goal, but there's a bunch of players and we're not in it. The end.
We are definitely not in it. Ash, any thoughts from you?
Yeah. Well, I would go back further to aliens and giants.
Of course.
Who are reptiles.
Obviously.
Well, I just find it very interesting because, with, my obsession with giants lately, it has brought a lot of this sort of stuff into my, away from my periphery and into my, right in front of me. And so I hear all that Dave's talking about now, and it's like, oh, that actually plays a role. It's weird. So I don't know what to think about it, but I do think that um, this goes back a very long time, and you can even I would say that probably, when you see the new discovery that they've found in Egypt, right? The pyramids of Giza, they've found these cylindrical pillars underneath the pyramids, and basically, like, the historical record isn't what we thought it was. And if you look at the cave paintings and all this kind of stuff, like, you see these like weird images of these giant gods. And I don't know how it connects to this, but I bet it has something to do with, like, when you ask, like, what is it that these Illuminati or the Frankists or the Sabbateans or the, CFR, what do they want? I think there's something that has to do with Lush, our energy, stealing our energy. I know this sounds crazy, but um, it's written about in many, many, many of the ancient texts and the ancient religions. And so I think we've lost something along the way. And when you think about how all of these religions have been inverted so that you can't trust their word anymore, um, it makes sense that like, you have a falling out of that type of religion in some way, because, like, there are still people that believe in that religion, but there's something that happened to invert it and to change your beliefs. And so I think there's something really fundamental that we're all kind of like, it's in the common collective now that we're all trying to figure out. And I don't know, I'm very excited about it, because I think that we're figuring shit out that we never knew before, or that we didn't piece together. I'll leave it there.
And this is why you're white pilled, and why we love you, Ash.
Yeah.
I'm with Ash. You know what? I'm with Ash.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
It's like this info that's out now. Sorry, just in the 60s or 50s or 30s, there weren't people sitting around talking about it as often as they are now. And you know what? That's a good thing. So, sorry, Tammy.
Very true. Very true. Tammy.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to add?
Today I'm with Ash. Tomorrow I might be black pilled. We don't know.
Well, I'm not even saying that I'm not even, that wasn't even really a white pill thing.
It sounded very white.
It was very white pill.
But
it was.
But
it
like,
was.
it's kind of like, it's crazy that this is all kind of coming together, is all I'm saying. But I mean, it's fucked up. And it sucks, and I hate it. And I think we're doomed, and I hate Canada.
Well, that took a nosedive really quickly.
Yeah, real quick.
I'm not black pilled, but
this is beautiful. Also, we're doomed, and Canada's fucked.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I fucking hate this place. Where are those aliens?
I don't know. Like, I think we're all figuring something out along the way. So
Agreed.
I don't know. We could all, like, who knows? Maybe when the asteroid comes, we'll figure more out. But
when the asteroid comes, oh God, or when Noah builds his ark so we can get ready for the flood.
Yeah, right. Noah.
No, we already got your boat.
Interesting.
Like, we're good. We got your boat. We're fine.
Well, Noah needs to make it better then, I guess, so we can fit all the animals.
Oh my God. Oh, well, Dave.
Hi.
This was a very informative presentation you gave.
Thank you.
We all are very black-pilled and slightly white-pilled. Thanks to Ash. Not thanks to you. That part's thanks to Ash. I also am in a lot of pain because I think Ash is the only one that didn't realize before we hit record that I'm in the dark because I have no light in this room. And it literally happened seconds before we started recording, and it was been an actual struggle that I have a massive headache now. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Why don't you have any light?
Because the bulb decided to die right before we started recording.
Oh.
And I'm like, shit, I can't change this now. And actually, I don't even think we have a spare bulb because I messaged my husband. I'm like, I'm really struggling in the dark. And he's like, in the dark? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't get what you meant when you said, guys, I'm in the dark here.
Because
and
you
it's
weren't
bright.
on
I'm like,
yet
okay.
when I mentioned it to Dave and Tammy, and I was like, fuck.
You're in the dark ages over there.
Yeah, well, that too.
and we're illuminated. Just kidding. I'm not Illuminati.
So, and then I took a little break and I brought myself a flashlight. It's not really making a difference though. Anyways, Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
Follow me on Twitter. Follow my stuff on Rumble. On X. Sorry. Follow me on X. If you keep it real, I follow you back. Let's fight good. Let's fight evil. I'm on the team of good.
If you keep
What do we got for
real.
next week? Who's going to tell me about that?
Yeah, Tammy. Tammy's going to tell us about that.
I am. So we have Eric St. Pierre joining us next week. If you don't know who he is, for anybody listening, he is on X. He is absolutely just a wonderful, positive light on there. He does one of my favorite things every day, and it's a question of the day, and I really enjoy reading them. And he's just a super positive person. I really enjoy his posts, and he did a post the other day and I was like, why haven't we had him on the podcast yet? So, knowing that I had an episode upcoming, I reached out to him and asked him if he'd be interested in coming on, and he said yes. So I'm super excited for that.
I love him. You know what's funny? The day before you told us, I actually saw one of his posts or one of his comments or whatever it was, and I thought to myself too, how come we haven't had him on? And then boom, you asked him to come on.
He's so great. I'm actually so excited to have him on.
I can't wait to talk about his dog Luna.
Oh, I love her.
Yes, she's so beautiful. Yeah.
We should all just talk about our dogs. Sorry, Dave. You can talk about your cat if you want.
Yeah, I got a cat.
I got a cat too.
I have 3 dogs.
Tammy, don't you have a cat too?
Yes, I have 3 dogs and a cat.
I have 2 dogs
It's a
and
busy
a cat.
home.
Ash does not have. Ash has rabbits.
We're not getting into this.
I do not have rabbits yet.
Stop it.
Not after yesterday's dinner, you don't.
Boom.
That's enough.
Oh, God. Well, everybody, make sure you follow Dave at Perception Correction over on Twitter and watch all his videos, and make sure you watch this one in detail because it's got a lot of great information. We are going to sign off here. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Share with all your friends, both the bigoted ones and the non-bigoted ones, so we can get our message out there. And you all have a wonderful evening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.